TLC. Welcome to this beautiful Sunday day. Welcome to November. Welcome to fall and falling back. Right now, I invite each and every one of you to allow yourself to fall into spirit, that universal creative source that is everything and all. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take a nice, deep, cleansing breath in, breathing in the cool, crisp air that surrounds you. And as you release the breath, release all that no longer serves you. Go ahead and take another nice, deep, cleansing breath in. And as you release this breath, allow your body to relax in this moment. And allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and receptive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender to the conflicts of my ego, to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one very special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This could be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be in the same room this morning or even on this planet anymore. I turn to that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in this room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
What is all right with us in this place is voting. What is all right with us in this place is donating blood. What is all right with us in this place is saluting the flag. In fact, pretty much anything that's legal is all right with us. We don't demand that you do it, but we don't forbid that you do it. It's kind of nice to have a spiritual system that doesn't push you around, you know, where you don't come on the Sunday before Election Day and get told who to vote for or what to vote for, because we've had too much of that. I remember elections. I've gotten to the age where I can say, well, back in my day, I remember things used to be like. I remember elections where two candidates for president would talk about they had a big vision for the future, and they were like two ants who were competing to get you to come to their house on Thanksgiving. And the one ant would say, you come to our house, come to my house, we're going to have turkey and watch football. And the other one would say, you come to my house and we're going to have tofu and play mahjong or something, you know. And they describe this to you in these, you know, these florid kinds of terms to try to pull you in to the vision. What we're faced with this time around is two camps which describe apocalyptically what would happen if you voted for the other. And so what I want to do today, because it's 2 days before Election Day, although many of you, if you're going to vote, you've probably already voted, so this isn't about whether or not you vote. It's more about, well, it's really entirely about consciousness, because guess what? That's what we always talk about in here, is it's about consciousness. It's about fear. It's about the fear that people have about what's going to happen if the wrong thing happens, if the wrong person enters the White House or the wrong person goes into Congress or what have you. And there's a way of managing fear that this teaching offers. It's really healthy and balanced, you know. And one thing it doesn't say in the big picture is don't have any fear ever. Because you say that and you lose the audience right away. Everybody has fear. Everybody has something that they're concerned about. You have caution. You have apprehension. I don't care what you call it. You have some sort of concern to take care of things. You lock your car. You lock your house. Do you have kids? You watch over them. You're concerned about where they go and what they do. You listen to your body. And if it tells you I've had enough of whatever that was, don't give it any more. And if it tells you it needs some sleep, you give it some sleep. And is that fear, or is that just paying attention? So I like to draw a distinction between fear or apprehension or even suspicion on the one side and dread on the other. And dread gets us nowhere. Dread just paralyzes you. Dread is like no matter what you do or how much you do it, everything is going to hell in a handbasket. Everything is doomed to fail. And you just give up. You just give up. And this is why people say, well, it doesn't matter who I vote for. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what I think. I'm completely powerless in this society. And when you start to feel like you're powerless and voiceless in this society, guess what? The spiritual law that you're working with takes what you give it, and it begins to manifest the appearance of that being so, even though that's never been so. If, on the other hand, you say, I matter, my voice matters, what I think matters, then, well, you get the opposite result out of spiritual law. So for us to feel like we're agents of healing, of the culture, of society, for us to feel like we represent love, we represent kindness in the world, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And not only is it a good thing in the big picture of how it spirals out from you in waves of energy and all the metaphysical jazz, but it also helps your food digest better, helps your metabolism. You get fewer headaches. You don't grind your teeth in your sleep, you know? You have more peace about yourself. When you feel like you're a pillar in the temple. We've been talking about this in the Bible class, the imagery of being a pillar in the temple. And this was how in ancient times it was represented in the community. The community needed you to be who you were for the benefit of the community. In fact, your spiritual practice, we're talking thousands of years ago, your spiritual practice was not about your personal enrichment. It was not about your personal elevation. Your spiritual practice was about what was good for the culture, good for the people. Were the crops going to come in healthy? Were the neighbors who looked to conquer our lands going to rethink their choices? Was the area that flooded, that was inevitably going to flood because it had every year in memory, was it going to flood in a manageable way and in the time frame we expected so that we could plan? And so on. And that was the idea. And if you did your work, if you interacted with the deity or deities in a useful, respectful kind of way, then the culture benefited, and consequently there was a trickle down to you. And you got enough to eat, and you got a place to live, and so on. Now we humans decided along the way that that was kind of an old-fashioned way, kind of primitive way of looking at things, and that everybody ought to be in it for themselves. And there's a whole long historical story of how this came to be, particularly in the Western world, that now if you have motivation and you have intention and you have grit, you know, that you can get out there and you can create something for yourself that's better than what anybody else has for themselves. And that everything is about competition. Everything is about a race to the top. And there's a certain exhilaration to that, a certain enjoyment to that. And there's also a certain exhaustion to that. And a certain fear-based motivation that if I don't keep hustling for my good, somebody's going to take what's rightfully mine. So we get suspicious and weird, and that's what leads to this dread of the future, of, well, what if? What if everything I believed is a lie? What if everything I believed is a lie? And I promise you that right now, from where you sit in this room, you could on your phone call up a video that would tell you that everything you believe is a lie, whatever it is you believe. They'd even have graphs and charts on there. And you know the easiest thing to make is a graph or chart that doesn't refer directly to the statistics that are being charted on it. You can make it, I could pull up a chart. That would be fun some Sunday. Here's a chart that shows 100% of the people in this room here are the experience that God is having by means of them at this time. And everybody'd go away happy, you know. And it's like, all I have to base that on is my faith. I've got no hard evidence for this. We have no hard evidence for anything. What we have is faith, and we have belief. We say, is that good enough? Well, it was good enough for the ancients. It's the one through line that we have in human culture the whole time, is that somebody somewhere has been believing something. Somebody somewhere has been interacting with the God of their understanding so as to manifest a certain thing, a certain peace, a certain certainty. Now, last month I did a series on the Gnostics, and before that on Rufus Jones, the Quaker, and before that, and on back into the mists of time, all of which posit our position on a continuum between mystery and certainty. The great mystery is why any of this came to be. A secondary mystery is how any of it came to be, but the greater mystery is why any of it came to be. The certainty, you chug on down the track to the other extreme, and you come to certainty, and it is so. It is so. It is just this. I'm looking at a stage extension that's made of wood. It has certain dimensions. It has certain weight. It is no more or no less than what I am looking at. I start to see it through the eyes increasingly of mystery, and I see it as a place where dancers dance and singers sing. And a feeling is conveyed off of this thing. It's like out of a musical instrument or something, you know? This is how we toggle back and forth between the certainty and the mystery in mind. Well, as we're doing that individually, the culture is doing that collectively. It's got a polarization effect. It's got a rhythmic, pendulum-like effect back and forth. And you see that right now, what's happening in the culture is there's this, we're top-heavy on the side of certainty. Everybody wants to be absolutely certain of what's so and what's going to be so. I had somebody the other day ask me who's going to win the election. They didn't ask me who I thought was going to win the election, who, if I was a gambling person, I would put money on to win the election. They didn't ask me who I wanted to win the election, if I had any preference. They asked me who was going to win the election. And I responded in the only honest way I could. I said, I have no idea. I have no idea. But then, last week, I had no idea who was going to win the World Series. A few months ago, I had no idea who was going to win the Kentucky Derby. And I probably know a little more about politics than I know about baseball or horse racing, but maybe not, you know. But it's like, I don't know. Why? Because there are all these factors involved that aren't about me, that I don't control, And frankly, if there's anybody out there in your life, especially a person who calls himself some kind of a spiritual leader, and they're telling you that they have a certain insight with God, that God whispered in their ear exactly what's going to happen next, I would strongly encourage you to turn and run as fast as you possibly can, because nobody knows what's going to happen. Because on Tuesday, somebody's going to go into a voting booth somewhere and change their mind. Okay? Or stay home, or get up and go who'd planned to stay home. Or, we just don't know. So what do we know? What is the one certainty that we can count on? Well, we come back to our old friend Ernest Holmes about that, where he brings up, he describes the certainty and the mystery in terms of the relative and the absolute. The relative and the absolute. The absolute is that which is. The I am. The I am that I am. And everything else is relative to it. Everything else is subjective to it. There is one life. That life is source. That life is all the life there is. And everything else is some particularization of that. So where do you suppose we want to spend the bulk of our time? In consciousness, in mind, and in heart. It's with the absolute. It's what I'd say. Go to the absolute and say, show me more of who I am. Show me more of how I can be of service in the world. Show me more of how I can have inner peace. Show me more of that kind of thing, my eternality, my immortality, rather than my limitations. If I need to know my limitations, show them to me so I can work on them, you know? But when we get busy just rearranging the relative, it doesn't add up to the absolute. It adds up to another pile of relative. We rearrange the furniture constantly in consciousness. We take the same information and move it around. And I was talking about this, I think, last week with you, about how when you go to thought, when you go to prior thought, you're working, it's like statistically, you're working off prior experience. When you go to the space between the thought, then you're working off fresh inspiration. All of our thoughts and all our opinions are rehashed material. We get up and we say, well, it's Sunday and another string of Sundays, and on Sundays I do this, and it looks like that, and if I'm surprised a little bit here and there, it still fits into the container called Sunday, and then Monday comes after it, and on and on. And so we go over the same thoughts and the same routine, and we're surprised sometimes, but we never completely blow up the box, you know? Until we go into meditation and we go to the face of the infinite and we go to the heart of the universe and we say, show me who I am, and then all bets are off. Because there's nothing there that's like it was before. It's all fresh, immediate, spontaneous. So the suggestion about fear is this. First of all, what I have found useful to do, and you may disagree with me, and that's totally your right, but I'm holding the microphone right now, so I'm going to go ahead and roll with this. What I have found useful to do is to acknowledge the fact that, yes, I have fears. I'm not going to stomp them into submission. I'm not going to shame myself and scold myself for having any. I'm going to look at them and I'm going to say, so are they absolute or are they relative? Where do they come from? From what do they issue? What here is a traumatic response to prior experience, that I flinch, you know, when something happens. Let me look at that and let me be more conscious and not less conscious in terms of my responses to life. You see a snake, you step back. You see a wasp. Some people love snakes. I've known people who kept them as pets. Maybe some of you do. You know, it's a wonderful thing. Other people are just aghast. You know, they run screaming into the, right? Mice are the same way. Mice they generate, nobody has like no response to a mouse. It's either, oh, look what a cute little mouse, or oh my God, and they're standing on the furniture. It's like, it's one way or the other. So you have caution, you have apprehension, you take certain care about certain things, especially if you're responsible for other people. Now, we could make the argument, and it's a whole other talk and a month of talks about, are we ever really responsible for other people? And the short answer is, yes, we are. Why? Because we enter into agreements called relationships, you see, and we say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to provide this into this relationship. Consequently, I have, well, responsibilities. I have obligations that I have to meet, you know, in terms of how to be fully present in this situation. What I don't have to do, though, is go into this perpetual dread of everything's going to come undone, that all the love and all the kindness and all the goodness of the human species over the centuries has tried to build up. All the beauty, all the wonder. We get into this sometimes in the classes, too, talking about the universal subjective mind, the consciousness of the species into which everything that anybody's ever thought or believed goes. And when I first came into New Thought and I heard about this, it was depicted as being negative. It was depicted as being all about sin, sickness, and death, and poverty, and crime, and misery, and war, and disease, and you didn't believe in any of that stuff. Now, you just had to turn away from all of that and think about God. Okay, not bad advice there, except wait a minute. If this is the collective consciousness of the species, we are doomed. Not only that, we should have disappeared long before now. If that was the primary content basis of the collective consciousness. So it can't be. It can't be. It's got to be sweet music. It's got to be beautiful poetry. It's got to be art. It's got to be love and kindness. It's got to be nature. And a day like this. And it's a little humid out there, and it's a little warm, and it's a little this, and it's a little that. And it's a day when the sun came up. And it's a day when the birds are singing, and it's a day when, thanks to Mary and Company, the profusion, I just nodded at Melody, thanks to Mary and Company, the profusion of butterflies in our garden here at the center is enormous. That's what Spirit has gotten busy creating. That's the gift. And so that's the contents of the collective consciousness, is not only all that beauty and wonder, but the capacity in each one of us to observe it. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Beauty is in the heart of the beholder. So what do I invite all of us to do as we go through the next 48 hours, which they're telling us isn't going to be enough because all the votes won't be totaled until who knows when, maybe next Sunday when we get together, you know. And there'll be a final announcement of, and people will change offices, and somebody will carry stuff out of in boxes to their car, and somebody else will carry stuff in, and the world will rearrange itself accordingly, politically, economically. And you and I will wake up in the morning and say to ourselves, I am. Spirit, you still there? Spirit, you still there? Spirit, you still there like you were on the morning of January 1st of 2000 when I woke up and looked up and the ceiling fan was still turning. And what that told me was Y2K had not shut down the whole planet. So I think of that. And it could have, I suppose. Or the power could have gone out for some other reason, and I could have completely freaked out and run over the hills screaming, thinking that the whole earth had gone dark, when in fact a fuse blew or something, right? You know? But I look at that and I say, Spirit, you still there? You still busy being all there is? Then show me who I am. Show me who I am. Show me what I must do today. And that will be true next week and the week after that and the year after that and everything else. So we hold hands, we walk through the changes, we walk through the aging process, we walk through everything that faces us in life. And we come out the other side of it, whole, complete, even, dare I say, perfect, in the sense of all-inclusive. So let's know together now there is one life. That life is pure spirit. That life is all the life there is. And that life knows what it's doing. Even with all the noise, even with all the churn within it, sometimes it appears engulfed in chaos, yet back of that chaos is an order, is a purposefulness, is an intention. And it allows us to be who we are and to work it all out and to figure out how to be a human family living together on this planet. With all our various interests and priorities, which often feel in competition, there is a way for each one of us to thrive. Each one of us to thrive. Including those of us who for the longest time have not thrived. Socially, culturally, economically. There is a way for all of us to learn, to grow, to love, to be at peace. And I affirm now that that way is making itself known more clearly, more distinctly than ever. As a wonderful spiritual teacher who left the planet last week said, that has rung inside my skull ever since I read that she had said it. Love brings everything unlike itself up to be healed. I claim that it is doing that now and that we are mighty to heal. And for this knowing and the way that it manifests in form, through every twist and turn of the human experience, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. And once
And now, since Lisa is not here today, I have the pleasure of giving us a benediction out and on our way. So I want to invite everybody in this moment just to remember with me that there is one life, one love, one presence, one being. That is spirit itself. It is the co-creative force that lives within me, just like it lives in each and every one of you. And it is with that force and in that force and of that force that we experience the gift of love, of life, of being on this planet, in this moment, at this time. And it is in, with, and through that gift that we find gratitude for what is, and we find comfort in what will be, knowing that the infinite is always present, and knowing that love is always here and available to and for each and every one of us. And it is for this knowing that I am so deeply grateful. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. I am grateful for our time together. I am grateful for your presence. I am grateful for the gift of sharing with this community at this time. And I release this gift, this knowing, this presence, this love back into infinite being. And I relax in this moment, calling it done. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use
and
it.
I love it.
And I love
so
it.
it is.
And so it is.